Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and in this video, I'm going to be going through and explaining the article that I wrote here for the website that we're launching very soon. We've got DiabloPro.gg, and we're getting the Raid Shadow Legends version of that website launched really soon, within a couple days. So, my goal is to have like video versions of the blogs and articles that we do there. It's going to be a partnership of a lot of different content creators and a lot of different people contributing and helping out with different resources. And this is just going to be one of the articles that I was doing, and that's the reason for this video. So we're going to discuss, is Raid Shadow Legends worth playing in 2022, and get you some updated context on that discussion. So let's get into it. Alrighty, so we've got, for a game that burst onto the scene in early 2019, many people end up wondering if the community is still thriving and if the game is worth getting into for a new player years later in 2022. The short answer to that question for me is yes, but now I will explain why. And we've got a chart here kind of showing the interest over time for Raid, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. Above is a look at the general interest level for Raid Shadow Legends over the course of its entire release. Honestly, this is pretty impressive, as most games crash way harder after launch and then die off and don't stay anywhere close to their initial launch numbers once a few years have passed. So this is true. This chart right here is very rare for a video game. Typically, you're going to see a chart that more looks like the one down here, but we'll talk about that in just a second. There are two actual reasons for this happening. The first is that Raid was a mostly unknown brand new game to the gaming scene, which means a relatively small launch that will experience natural growth into its peak. Games from very well-known franchises usually experience an insanely big launch, but risk having a massive crash if the game is not good enough to keep the attention of gamers. Which, as you can see, is this contrasting chart of Marvel Future Revolution. This is what a game is going to look like when it's part of a big IP like Marvel or Star Wars. You see this with like New World, Diablo Immortal, things that are massively popular, have a hugely hyped launch. You'll see these massive spikes and then just crater to a crash. So I wonder if that's going to happen if there's ever like a Raid Shadow Legends 2, because Raid is a big IP now. It is a well-known brand. They've spent millions and millions on marketing. It's an extremely popular game, and it has been for a while. So I would assume at some point they're going to make another game. I mean, why not? Raid was such a success. Why would you just let that IP die? They're going to probably produce something in the same vein as Raid Shadow Legends. And I wonder if we're going to see something like this. If there's going to be a massive spike and then it dies down to its normal player base, which is something like happened with Diablo Immortal. Or if a game is not very good enough to keep the attention of gamers, we see something like Marvel Future Revolution, where within literally a month or two, the game is dead. But it goes on to say this becomes extremely clear when you compare the general internet flow of Raid to Marvel Future Revolution. The Marvel game got to experience a massive launch because of name recognition, but the design of the game was not good enough to keep the attention of gamers interested for the game to succeed long term. So it crashed immediately and extremely hard, was completely dead within months. The second reason for Raid being able to sustain long term is having a very robust community with fairly consistent events and content compared to the rest of the industry. And you know, some people are going to think that's a hot take, but it's really not. Raid has really consistent in-game events. Every day you've got like a tournament and an event to focus on with some rewards to collect. That's not the case in every game. It's becoming a little bit more of an industry standard, but back in the day when Raid came out, that definitely was not a thing. Even tournaments and events in Raid were very few and far between. There would only be like a boosted summoning rates event, maybe like once every month or two. Now you get them extremely consistent every week. You got a rotation of lots of events that keep you kind of interested in monitoring the community and what is going on within the game. And then the other point was having a very robust community, which is definitely true. Plarium got really lucky with the amount of content creators and the amount of collaborations and fun stuff that go on within the Raid Shadow Legends community, that it just kind of naturally happened and naturally grew, that Plarium didn't really have to pay for or incentivize. It was just people who naturally discovered and enjoyed the game and produced a bunch of amazing tools and did a bunch of fun collabs and a bunch of fun streaming. So really, really robust compared to some of the other games that are out there that I have tried out over the years. Not to mention that there is a very high amount of amazing resources for players to enjoy today that are extremely informative and well done. Tier lists, calculators, giveaways, live streams, daily news coverage, event planning, and very specific guides have all been developed over the last few years because of an extremely robust content creation scene. Mixing all those things together has been a recipe for maintaining a game that can sustain a player base for many years. Given all of the above and the fact that Raid is a massive revenue generator for the company that owns it, I do not anticipate the game dying anytime in the next 2 years. Since it's free to download, I would recommend downloading it and trying it out. And yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, this chart doesn't really look like a game that's dying to me. This is a chart that a game looks like when it's dying. Now, obviously, when a game is 3, 4, 5 years old, it's probably going to trend downward in a negative direction. That's to be expected. Very rarely is a game going to just grow for years and years on end. Maybe something like League of Legends or some massive 1 in a million type of exception. But this is a pretty normal, stable community chart for a game within the, especially in the industry of mobile, where games kind of spike and die pretty fast. And just for a little bit of extra context, I can actually pull up League of Legends here, and you can notice that very clearly this is the last 5 years. You've got 2017 over, obviously, to 2022 now. And you can see, again, League of Legends is a massive exception that did a really good job of maintaining its community, but you do still get that slight downward trend on League of Legends, where 5 years ago it was way up here, and it's going to be about half as popular now as it was 5 years ago. Then if we switch over to another titan in the gaming industry, we have got Fortnite, and you'll see that the interest over time in general worldwide kind of spiked over right here, had a dip, then a big boost, but then has been kind of slowly dying since then. And again, about 4 years from its peak, it is about a third as popular as it was the 4 years prior to that. So what we can kind of see there is that is kind of the norm. Even for games that are extremely popular, they are just going to kind of naturally slowly fade over time, even if the game is doing a very good job of kind of taking care of its community and player base. And then a newer example of this would be Diablo Immortal, and you can see how that was a massively hyped launch, but it's a much better game than Marvel Future Revolutions was. So you can see that it does crater off of the big release, but then it starts to kind of maintain, and it will kind of depend how the game developers can do in terms of incentivizing players to keep logging in and keep coming back and keep playing the game long term. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a little bit of context on if Raid Shadow Legends is worth playing in 2022. I do think it is. I don't see it dying anytime in the next year or two, but I do see it slowly fading, which is perfectly normal. And I am honestly really surprised that we haven't seen in the last 4 years that another game emerge with the same kind of style and the same aesthetic and really compete with Raid Shadow Legends. I really thought that you would see some of these gaming companies that have a ton of money would see a game like Raid Shadow Legends and how it did, and then try to like copy it with the same aesthetic and release a similar game. But we really haven't seen that yet. I'm sure we will at some point, and it'll be interesting to see how that affects Raid when that does happen, and kind of how everything moves from here. But that will do it for me on this one. Let me know what you think down below, and don't forget to subscribe on your way out, as I will be covering Raid and gaming in general here on the channel on a daily basis for you. So as always, thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.